Hi, and welcome to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. I'm Dupe Witherick, alcohol free wellbeing and transformational coach, and the best selling author of A Cocktail of Clarity, How to Ditch Drinking, Embody a Joyful New Identity, and Thrive Alcohol Free. This podcast will show you that being alcohol-free is not what the traditional narrative says. And even though alcohol is so ingrained in our society that it is okay to give yourself permission to stop drinking if you want to. And you do not have to wait until you hit rock bottom. It is certainly not boring, and I believe ditching drinking is just the start to living an extraordinary life. By getting rid of this one thing, it allows the doors to open to endless possibilities and opportunities. Each week, we will have guests on who are at various stages of the alcohol-free journey, from those who are curious to those who have been alcohol-free for years. We will also have experts on talking about different topics relating to alcohol and beyond. Through these conversations, you will discover what it means to thrive alcohol-free. Enjoy. Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. I'm delighted you're here and you've taken the time to listen today. So I hope you're well and you're having a great week. It's quite an exciting week coming up for me. So on Sunday, I'll be running the London Marathon for the second time. So I ran the London Marathon last year, and having not run since I was 15, 16, I started running a few months after stopping drinking and realised that I actually quite enjoyed that. And I did remember that when I was younger, I did enjoy running, and I did a lot of athletics and cross-country running and various things, but just hadn't really done it in my 20s or 30s. So took it up and loved it. And so I got the bug. I started with a 10K program, did a 10K, then did a few 10Ks, then went on to do a couple of half marathons, then did the marathon last year, and I'm putting myself through the pain again on Sunday. So I will let you know next week how I got on, but it is exciting. It feels like, because I've done it before, it doesn't feel like it's the unknown, which is great, but at the same time, it still feels daunting because it's a long old way. And I have to say, I probably haven't trained as much. I've been a bit unwell and various things have stopped me from running during this 18-week training period that I planned on doing the training plan for. And so I probably haven't run as much as I did last year. I pretty much did 5 days a week for 18 weeks last year, and that hasn't been the case this year, but we will see how it goes. I'm feeling good about it. So let's see how we get on. And then the other exciting thing is my book, A Cocktail of Clarity, will be a year old next week. So it will be a year since A Cocktail of Clarity, How to Ditch Drinking, Embody a Joyful New Identity and Thrive Alcohol Free came out. And I'm reflecting on that and grateful for all the lovely comments and reviews and feedback that I've had on the book, and I'm hoping it's helping people. I wanted to be for people who hadn't hit rock bottom, who wanted to choose to stop drinking and to see that that was a possibility, and then have the practical steps and guidance to sort of walk you through that if you weren't able to do coaching or to get the online course or anything like that. You can read the book and it does have questions and actions, lots of tips and tricks along the way, as well as recipes like mocktail recipes and breathing techniques and other things. It's based on my Thrive AF method, so it takes you from foundation through to firsts and then on to freedom. And so if you haven't got a copy of my book, then feel free to go and get it and add it to your Quitlit resources. It's amazing that it's been a year already, and yeah, I hope it continues to get into the hands of people. So if you have got the book and you've read it and you enjoyed it, please feel free to leave a review on Amazon. I'd really appreciate that because it just means more people will see it and get it. Okay, and so then we also have the celebration evening coming up. So that's next Friday on the 26th of April at Club Soda Tasting Room. There are still a few tickets left, so if you would like to come along, it'd be lovely to see give you a hug and just have a wonderful evening. It's going to be lots of fun and quite informal, and lots of like-minded people in a room enjoying themselves and trying lots of different alcohol-free drinks. And we have the lovely panelists who are going to be joining me. So William Porter from Alcohol Explained and Denise Hamilton Mace from Lono Drinker magazine will be joining me on the panel, and we'll be answering your questions. So I'm really excited about it. I hope you can come along. I'll leave the details in the show notes for you to get a ticket if you haven't got one yet, and I look forward to meeting you. Okay, so that's a whirlwind of what's coming up, and next week's episode will also be based on the book because that is officially when it came out. So I actually have Ken Middleton interviewing me, so it's a slightly different episode where I'm being interviewed. So feel free to take a listen to that when it comes out next week. Okay, so today we have Lindsay Hennekey, who is our guest. And Lindsay and I have a very similar journey. She's been in the corporate world for 20 odd years. I have been in the corporate world for 20 odd years, and we both stopped drinking and decided to train as coaches and start helping women who wanted to stop drinking, to really explore what an alcohol-free lifestyle could be like. And so Lindsay is a sobriety coach for women and creator of Sobriety is Your Edge, a group coaching program where women will experience the support and mind nourishment they need to feel confident and the most relaxed woman in the room where alcohol is no longer an issue. After years of a hostile relationship with alcohol, Lindsay ditched it altogether in 2020 and shares openly how she did it. You can find her on Instagram at Happily Soberly Living, and you can also check out her website. So I will put those details below in the show notes so that you can check out Lindsay after this. So without further ado, here is the conversation with Lindsay. Hi, so welcome, Lindsay. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. How are you?
Hi, I am doing so great. Thank you so much for having me.
Not at all. It's lovely to see you. So, for people that may not know who you are, why don't we start from the beginning? What got you to this point? Maybe high level, and then we can delve into parts of it.
Yeah. So let's see. What got me to this point was just this calling of my husband saying to me, people don't do what you did. People don't just quit drinking the way you did it. And I'll get into more of how I did it later. This level of respect that he started to show for me after, and I was like, they don't? Oh, maybe I should start talking about it. And so I entered this world of Instagram where I had no idea that there was such a huge sober community, specifically women's sobriety community, that is just so amazing on Instagram. And I was like, wow, there's like thousands of accounts just like this. I wish these were around in 2020. Maybe some of them were, but I just wasn't looking for it really. And that's when I really dove in and I started to explore more. And I learned I had never even heard the phrase gray area drinker or gray area drinking. And then I came across Janie and I took her sober coach training. And I thought, yeah, I need to start making a transformation so that I can serve others. I've worked in corporate America for 25 years. I've always worked for big companies, which we can also get into later, but it was just really time for me to do something where I was going to be able to serve others because I don't want women to feel the way I used to feel.
Wow. Gosh, you said it so succinctly, but there's so much in that. So I'm really excited about this conversation. And as you know, I've been in the corporate world for many years as well. And so I'll be intrigued to hear your story, and I'm sure lots of others will. So your husband kickstarted it, you telling the story, but tell us a bit about your journey. Who was Lindsay before the Lindsay that you said, I don't want others to feel the way I did? And how did you get to the point where you decided you'll take a break?
Yeah. So I was a drinker in college, like many of us, right? And after college, still my early 20s, I worked. I had a really good job right out of college. And life was just life in my 20s. I didn't really think anything of it. And so then after I had been married for a little while to my first husband, actually, we started down this like road of, are we going to have a family? And then I ultimately went through years of fertility treatments and I was unable to have children. And so through that, I think I always thought that I would stop drinking when I became pregnant. That would kind of be this milestone in my life where I would leave partying Lindsay and go to new family Lindsay. But that didn't happen. And then a multitude of changes occurred in my life where my husband at the time and I got a divorce, and I just put everything into my career, and my work environment was very drinking culture, predominantly men. I worked in digital marketing in the automotive industry here in the US. So I had a lot of work travel. It was often I was the only female, and there was always a lot of drinking. And I just had this lifestyle where from the outside looking in, it's like, oh, she's always on planes. She's always flying first class. She travels. She's going to California. She's going to Atlanta. She's going to Houston. She's going to Nashville. I was always traveling all around the country to these big cities, and seemed very glamorous. But it was very much like I would get to the airport early and make sure I had my glass of wine. I would slink into my first class seat and wait for them to bring me the champagne before, other people even boarded the plane type thing. And it was exhausting. And I would arrive in these cities and Uber into my hotel to where I couldn't wait to drop my bags and go to the hotel bar. And the next thing I'd know, it's 11 or midnight, and I'm supposed to be like out the door at 7:30 the next day for a day full of meetings, a week's full of meetings. And this glamorization around work travel and the expectation, if you will, to be social while you're on work travel, it really weighed on me a lot. And so my career kind of ebbed and flowed with that style for many, many years. And I was just totally stalling in life. The level of alcohol that I was drinking, it turned into my habit where the only way I knew how to relax was with my glass of wine that always turned into a bottle. But then there was always this other element of my life where I always exercised. I would be signed up for half marathons or going away on yoga retreats or hitting my yoga class. I exercised every day, but it was only so I could drink. Like I only worked out because I had to make up for all of these calories that I was constantly consuming. And it's painful to live like that and to think that that's normal, because for me, looking at my friends, I was no different than them. And them looking at me, they probably figured they don't know. Nobody knows that you're at home drinking a bottle of wine at night. They think that you're just out when you're with them, maybe having a drink or whatever, but they don't know that when you go home, you actually have 2 more glasses of wine at night or maybe more. And that just started to completely take away my ambition. It chipped away at me and I just became like nothing. I would literally rather spend any free time just sitting on my couch drinking wine and watching mindless television than spend time with my husband or with friends. And that I knew needed to change after a while. So it was just like keeping up a facade was also exhausting as well. So in 2018, I completely was like, I was turning 40 that year, and I knew that I needed to make a change. I hadn't gotten any crazy big raises in a while. I was working hard, but I wasn't really working. I wasn't showing them everything I had because I felt I didn't really have anything left in me. So I read this book by Rebecca Weller, A Happier Hour. That was the first book I ever read. I read it in a weekend. It was Thanksgiving weekend here in the US, so November, 1 month before my 40th birthday. And a coworker and we decided that we were going to do 30 days. In the book, Rebecca does 100, and there was just absolutely no way that my brain could even get wrapped around 100 days of no alcohol. And I remember I had a work trip during this 30 days. My HR manager and we were going to Washington, D.C. to do a training. And I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? We're staying in a fancy hotel in the middle of Washington, D.C. How am I not going to go to that fancy hotel bar and drink after we get there? And so I was about 2 weeks into my 30 days. And it was so great because my coworker didn't really drink either. And so we just sort of naturally went into this week where we went to this class all day together. And in the evenings, we went out to dinner. And I observed how much other people either drank or didn't drink while they were out. And I remember it was a Tuesday evening, and my coworker and I were sitting in a restaurant, and there was a table next to us. And it seemed clear that this table was on a date. And they were young, in their mid-20s. And the woman said to the guy, she said, well, I don't really drink. I'm not trying to drink on a Tuesday night. And I thought, wow, she's so young and she's saying that. She's got it figured out. And I was so uncomfortable sitting there without my glass of wine. I was literally just like, I got to get through this. And then ultimately at the end of that work trip, I was so incredibly proud of myself. I was like telling everybody, I just went on a work trip and I didn't drink a drop of alcohol. I couldn't wait to tell people. And they didn't really care. I don't, because they probably didn't know it was such a big deal. But yeah, and I just remember thinking, wow, this 20 something next to me is openly telling this guy who it seemed very clear they were on a first date that she doesn't really drink. I was shocked by this. So fast forward into my 40th birthday, I totally blew it. I didn't make my full 30 days. I drank probably more that week of Christmas than I would have the whole month of December. And things kind of just stayed the same for me for a while. I read a few more books, but I didn't really make any change. And then 2020 comes, and I was like, this is it. We are in a global pandemic. And I had also just gotten my dream job that I had worked so hard to get. Massive pay increase, nice big company, marketing. I was back into the tech sector. So I was super excited. I was not in automotive, but I was still in tech. And it was so great. And I remember thinking, there is absolutely no way that I'm going to be successful at this company if I continue drinking the way that I am drinking. And so I still drank for the first couple of months. I was navigating things, and I learned that I had to have a hysterectomy. I had tons of fertility issues my whole life. And so I had this hostile uterus, and I needed to have an emergency hysterectomy. And it ended up being that it didn't have to be emergency. So I was able to put it off a little. With the pandemic, it was I did not want to be in a hospital at that time. So I was like, give me any drug you need to give me so that I don't have to go to the hospital right now, and then tell me when it's safer. So I was able to prolong it. But what I did was I was so afraid to have this surgery with the amount of alcohol that I had been drinking that there would be some level of complication. So I committed to quitting drinking 2 weeks before this surgery. I wanted the alcohol out of my system before I had to go under this anesthesia. And then that was the end. I never drank after that. And what happened after that was beyond my wildest dreams. I completely was killing it at work. People were coming to me. People respected me, and nobody there really even knew that I had drank because I hadn't worked there very long when I quit drinking. And so nobody there knew that this was a problem in my life. They didn't know that I was the girl at my previous work who was up for happy hour 5 nights a week and all of these things. I was just Lindsay, this new person. And so it gave me this opportunity to show my work life just a totally different side of me. And I received very large pay increases in this time. So my career in my late 30s had completely stalled. And in a matter of 1 year, 2 years, 3 years of being at this company, I had almost doubled my income in the 3.5 years that I was there. But right out of the gate, I had 25% increase in pay, another 25% increase in pay. I was getting massive pay increases to do the work I was doing. And that had just never happened to me before. And so I just knew that if I had ever drank again, that I wasn't going to be this happy. I wasn't going to be this successful. I had completely turned things around with my husband. Like, our relationship became so close because I wanted to spend time with him. They talk a lot about this introvert extrovert piece when you're a drinker. And I think that when I was a drinker, socially, I would come out as this big extrovert. But when I was drinking at home alone, I didn't want to talk to anybody ever. It was just my time. And now I don't know if I'm an introvert or an extrovert at all. I'm just normal. I just feel comfortable. And that is where I get to of what I want for women is to be confident and comfortable and be the most relaxed person in the room. That was a lot. Sorry.
That was great. Yeah, confident, comfortable, and the most relaxed in the room. I think that's brilliant. I know that so many women just don't feel like that, especially in the corporate world, because there's this imposter syndrome, there's this anxiety, there's this constant political game that goes on, there's this who's going for promotion, and it's a bit of a bun fight, and women are competing against themselves, and they really don't need to. And
Yeah.
actually, being the most comfortable, confident, relaxed person in the room is what is going to get you where you need to be. And it's the right energy to exude, and then things happen and you are open to receiving and things magnetize towards you. So that's obviously what happened to you in those 3 years, and it's incredible. And so once you stopped drinking, how did you find that? You said that was it, you were done. So you obviously stopped for a purpose, and then I imagine you would have had a recovery period after your hysterectomy, and
Yeah.
then potentially you could have gone back to drinking, but what stopped you doing that? Were you in that job then, or was
I
that
was.
okay?
Yeah, I was. It was really related to how I knew that I had to make a very bold change because everything I had done leading up to that time to quit drinking or moderate my drinking rather had not worked for me. I mean, I had spent from that time in 2018 to June of 2020, I had spent this time trying to moderate and figure it out and create a massive amount of rules around my drinking, all that led me to binge drinking even more and not like, right? And so I just knew that if I didn't move more into discomfort and what was out of my comfort zone, that I was never going to get to the other side of alcohol. I just knew it. And so after my surgery and after my recovery period, I just didn't go back and I just continued to read Quit Lit. I continued to lean into my husband and be more open with him about what was going on. And that was really the major thing here for me. I never wanted him to think that I was some sort of failure, or I didn't want him to know that I thought I had a problem with alcohol. Because once you tell someone that you have a problem with it, then it's like, oh, it's like that little, it's just, it's not really a mark that you want on yourself. So I didn't want him to think that I couldn't control it. And when I finally told him that I couldn't, and look, I need to stop drinking. It needs to not be an issue in my life anymore. That's when I was able to also tell him what I needed for support. And that's a big part of my coaching and my program is if you have a partner, or maybe it's not your partner, but if you are single, it's whoever you spend the most time with. We have to be open so that they know that we're trying to make this change, because this has to go with your goals, right? When you tell somebody about a goal, you're 90% more likely to achieve it. If you write it down, you're 40% or whatever. So you like, it's not necessarily the goal, but they're only going to support you and how they think you need to be supported. So having that open conversation with them around what you need for support is what's going to help you be successful. Because if they don't know, they're just going to keep telling you what they think you need to hear. And that might not work for you. And it could actually sabotage you. And your support is going to change as you go through this journey. Week 1 of no alcohol is very different than week 40.
Yeah. And so can I ask what support you asked him for?
Yeah,
What was it?
yeah, so it ranged for me. There were some different levels. There was very tactical support, like, hey, we're going to be in this social situation. Here's what I need from you. Please don't ask me what I'm drinking. Please don't ask me if I'm going to drink alcohol tonight, because here's the thing, you already know the answer is no. Or if somebody else starts talking to me about my drinking, just don't say anything, let me handle it. It's just so that way in social situations, he knew what I wanted. And then the other thing was, if you see me and I am saying yes to a drink and I'm doing it, I'll talk to you about that when I'm ready. I really don't want you to say to me, are you sure you don't want that drink? Are you sure you're going to have that drink? And so it was really just about what I needed from him for messaging and what I needed from him in social situations. Because for all things considered, from his point of view, he needs to know that I am not drinking. That is my goal right now. And so I don't need to hear from you if I decide to.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really helpful, I think, because was your husband drinking at the time?
Yeah. And I mean, and he drinks, but my husband is able to just like come home from work and have a beer and that's it.
Yeah.
So that was just never me.
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. I think that's going to be helpful for people because one of the reasons a lot of people decide they don't want to stop is because that's what they've always done with their partner. And so that has been their habit. And if you've been with someone for however long, if you met them through drinking and you go on dates and you go to restaurants and you go to theatres and you go to wherever and it's always revolving around having a drink, it's quite challenging to then say, well, what do I do if I'm not drinking and the
Wow.
other person is still
Yeah.
drinking?
Yeah. I mean, they definitely are going to reflect on how is this change of yours going to impact my life? Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that was a big piece of our social life, was like on the weekends we would go to breweries. There's probably 10 breweries within a 8-minute drive for me where I live. I can spit on a brewery from my house, I'm sure, if I thought about it. And so it is a big part of socializing. It's like, oh, let's go meet over here and whatever. I am also fortunate enough that where I live, there's a surprising amount of non-alcoholic beer at most establishments. I feel like it has improved so much in the last 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the whole alcohol-free drinks market has changed hugely. 3 and a bit years ago, there was hardly anything, and now there is just loads. There's huge amounts. Yeah, it's exciting. It's really exciting, and it gives people the option to be included and not feel like they're missing out, and then also make the decision that potentially taking a break is doable because there's an alternative that doesn't make me feel like I'm a child. And
Yeah.
so, yeah,
Yeah.
it's been interesting. Okay, so let's maybe go back. It's funny when you talked about the success at work, and I think a lot of people don't correlate that at all with drinking. We're all told that in order to be an adult, in order to be successful, as you talked about, business travel and how glamorous it is and having champagne on the plane and all of that stuff, that is what a successful corporate person looks like. And it's
Mhm.
all work hard, play hard. It's let's go take our clients out for nice dinners. Let's pick the wine and make sure it's good wine. And of course, the taste of wine is important and all of that sort of crap. But you said you stopped briefly in 2018 and you went on that trip. How did you navigate that trip? I know you said you stuck with the lady who wasn't drinking, but you must have still had to interact with others in your company who you would normally interact with.
Yeah, in that container, I didn't. We were there for a specific training, and so it was just her and I.
Okay.
I was very protected in that trip, but old me, and also I was just very motivated to try to do it. to get through it without drinking. And so I kind of felt like it was a little bit of a competition with myself. And at that time, I hadn't been super serious about, I wouldn't even say that I was sober curious yet. I hadn't been super serious about quitting drinking. Leaving alcohol behind forever was not on the forefront of my mind at that point. It was taking a break and seeing how that went. And so when I had, part of it was competition. I had told my husband, I'm going on this work trip and I'm not going to drink. And he was probably like, uh-huh, okay. And so for me, just saying that to him, it immediately ignited a competition with myself to get through it without drinking. And that is one of the big things that people ask me. I held a workshop a couple weeks ago, and that was one of the questions is, how do you navigate airports when you're not drinking? And that was one of the hardest things. And I said, now I just wear really good sneakers and I walk when I'm at airports.
The airports are getting better, though, I have to say. So I did some business travel last year, and in the lounges, there were options of alcohol-free gin and alcohol-free beer, and yeah, it was actually quite exciting. And the duty free had a little range of some alcohol-free drinks as well. And this is in London, this is in Heathrow. I don't know if it's everywhere, but it was exciting to see. So you could still go into the lounge and actually think, oh, there's an alcohol-free gin. But I didn't fancy it because it was early in the morning and I was like, I just want a coffee, but old me would have thought, champagne o'clock, let's go. Um, that's the purpose of flying. So I think, yeah, it is slowly changing, but you're right, it's much easier to just wander around the shops or just sit somewhere with a book or whatever and not think about it if it does trigger you. I think as the years go on, it's a non-issue, but certainly early on, I remember my first flight. I actually took little plastic bottles that you have for body lotion and various things. You can put them in little plastic bottles that are 100 mils. I put a couple of non-alcoholic gins in there just to have something on the plane. When I got on the plane, I just asked for a tonic and then I souped it up. Because that was my first flight and I was nervous about it. And I thought, well, if I've got alcohol free, let me just do that. And since then, it's fine. That was a tip that I was told. So, yeah.
That's genius. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so work obviously has played a huge part in your life and your drinking and everything else. So what's changed?
Yeah. So I always go back to confidence, right? And I had this amazing career and I loved it. And I recently left and I thought, I worked really hard to get here, but then I have this calling where I don't want women to have to go through what I went through to get there. And so I quit my job and I went all in on coaching. And so that's really where I wanted to support women the most and be able to show them that you don't need to go home every day and have a glass of wine to deal with all the crap that went down at work that day. In fact, when you don't, you'll be able to not just deal with it, but you'll be able to face it and own it. And you will be the most relaxed woman in the room. And that's really where I want to get women. And so my program that I created is called Sobriety is Your Edge. And it's really about working with women in a sense that they don't have to white knuckle through some sobriety challenge or, a month. And because anytime I ever did that, I was literally counting down the days to when I was going to be able to have that glass of wine at the end, which always turned into a bottle. And so I don't want women to feel like they have to never drink again. That will be the outcome. But worrying about that is what can be so stressful about entering some sort of sober coaching program. It's like, well, what if I drink? And the beauty of what I've developed is to help women build resilience to come back from those slip ups so that they're ready to say no the next time they're faced with the decision to drink. And for women who are entering these challenges and they just can't wait until that last day so that they can have that glass of wine, what I have to say is it doesn't have to be like that. You can actually navigate a sober lifestyle or an alcohol-free lifestyle while having all the slip-ups and coming out on the other side where you've learned that you don't want that in your life anymore. And then you just become more confident. You're confident in your decision because you don't care what other people are drinking, and you don't care if they care what you're drinking. And that's where I am trying to elevate women too.
Yeah, and that's an amazing calling to have, and I feel like we're very similar anyway. I can I can tell. I think it's great. But how was it then to finally say goodbye to a 25-year
Mm,
career and go all in, as you said?
yeah, it was sad. It was sad. I had this team of people who reported to me, and I felt a little sad to leave them, but they also knew that I was ready for this big change. And the scary part was more of, as you know, in the US, our health insurance is tied to our employer.
Mm, yeah.
So my husband also, obviously, he works. And so I was able to switch over to his health insurance, which is fine and amazing. And I'm very grateful that I have that option. But we also have to pay for that, where before we each had free health insurance through our employer. And when you add somebody, you have to. So there's like, okay, great. Now we're paying, $450 a month for my health insurance. And by the way, I have no income coming in. And there could be this time period where that happens. But I'm like, well, that's okay, because now I know that my purpose is to serve other women, and the money will come. I'll figure that out. I'm not going to worry about that, because women need what I have and what I can give them. And when they're ready, I'll still be here. And I know that everyone is at this different phase of where they're at in this journey. And a woman who sees me the first time, who's a daily drinker and it hasn't occurred to her yet that she can live a life alcohol free, she's not ready for me right now. But 2 years from now, she could be. And I don't want to not be here for her.
No, that's so powerful. And it's a long game. It's not a 1 year and you're out. It's people's lives, and it shows that you've got the passion for it, and you'll help hundreds and thousands of people, I'm sure. So it's definitely the right way to do it. And I
Yeah.
love the fact that you are showing you are the most confident, comfortable, relaxed person in the room, because not many people would be brave enough to say, I'm going to leave this job, I'm going to follow what I know I'm meant to do, and I know I'll succeed because women need what I want. That's a huge statement, and that's just fantastic. So
Yeah.
kudos to you for just being you and showing what being alcohol free can truly do for you. Because I imagine 4 years ago, if we were having this conversation, you wouldn't have seen any of this coming.
No. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like I sit at work and you see all of these women. And so here's the other message. There's women who are daily drinking right now, and they're logging into Instagram and they're seeing accounts like mine, accounts like yours, and all of these sobriety influencers. And it's like, oh my gosh, how did they do this? How did they get there? Why do they look so happy? How I want that. I want that. I want to look like them. My eyes don't look like that anymore. My teeth aren't that white.
Mm,
And I don't feel good every day. And the sobriety community can give that to these women.
mm,
And whether they're ready now or they're not, the sobriety community is huge, and we're not going anywhere.
mm.
And if anything, we're growing, right? And so that is really the point in all of this. Women do not have to stall in their careers, and women do not have to go home every single day and drink wine. They don't.
No, it's just society that tells us that we do. So yeah,
Exactly.
it's interesting. And I do think the first step's really giving permission to yourself. And I think a lot of women don't feel that they are able to give themselves permission to stop, because what would it say? What will people think? What
Right.
does it mean? And that's what stops them from even taking that step. And to your point, even if you decide to take a break and then you go back to drinking, or you have a glass and then you think you messed up, whatever, you haven't. You've learned something. It's a learning. And what have you taken away from it? And do you want to try again? If so, just do that. Don't worry about it. And I think that your course being so open about that and saying, just let's see how the journey goes, but I'm going to teach you tools and I'm going to teach you things that are going to make it not hard or unenjoyable. You're not going to have to white knuckle it. We can
Yeah.
get through this quite nicely and amicably. And you don't get to the end of however long and think, I'm gagging for a drink the next day and midnight comes and you're like, right, I can drink now. That isn't the
Yes,
purpose of it. So
exactly.
fantastic. Okay. And so is there anything else that you want to talk about?
Oh my goodness. I think that we've covered it. I mean, we're here. And the more people that know that, when they're ready, we'll still be here. And that's all that's really important for them to know.
Yeah, that's really, really great message. And we absolutely are. One thing I would love to pick your brains on is moderation.
Mm,
And this is something a lot of women struggle with, especially because there are people that feel that if they're not near rock bottom or needing intervention, and then they're not a quote unquote alcoholic or whatever word you want to put to it, then they haven't got a problem. So they don't need to stop. So the next best thing is to moderate. What are your thoughts on moderation?
So the short version is that moderation didn't work for me. The other version, the other answer is that I believe that the attempts at moderation are what get you to the point to finally saying that you're done. And that is why such a big part of my program is like, look, if you slip up, if you go 3 or 4 weeks during this 90-day program and you don't have anything to drink, and then you do, and then you find that you just drank 3 or 4 days in a row, we're going to band together and figure this out. That doesn't mean it's the end of the road for you. That is a blip in the radar, and you are going to come out stronger because of it, because it's just information that you're learning. But when you don't realize that it's information because you're just living your life and you're creating all of these rules around drinking, like, okay, I don't drink Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but then all of a sudden, well, it's Thursday, so I'll just drink on Thursdays. I don't drink Sunday through Wednesday now. And then, oh, well, it's football Sunday, so obviously I drink beer all day. And all of those rules just start to get broken and get broken. And then the next thing you know, a girlfriend wants to go out on a Tuesday night, but you can't go out on Tuesday nights because you don't drink on Tuesday nights. And so you ask her if she can go out on Friday night, but she can't. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, I'll go out on Tuesday night. And then you're drinking on Tuesday night. And so your whole week has just been ruined because you've created these rules when you could have just gone out with your friend on a Tuesday night and ordered a San Pellegrino and had just as much fun, but you don't know that yet because you haven't done that. It's too foreign to you. And when eventually those things become more normal and you're like, oh yeah, I'll go out with my friends anywhere. I went out to lunch with a girlfriend today at a wine bar. We both had water. It doesn't
Who
matter.
knew? Who knew you could have water at a wine bar? Oh my
Who
goodness.
knew?
Revelation.
I know. And this particular place, they even have a pretty decent mocktail list, but I was like, I actually don't even want that sugar. Let's just get lunch. I just had I don't even need the mocktail. I just
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? You do get to that point where you're like, no, too sweet, too sweet.
yeah,
It's not.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Water's fine. Yeah.
So the long version of saying moderation is I think that moderation and the lessons you learn from it are how you get to the other side of alcohol for sure. But it ultimately, I don't think it's going to work for most people.
Well, just your description made it sound as exhausting as it is, in my opinion. So it takes up so much brain capacity, so much space, so much time, and you are just constantly thinking about drinking. And yeah, there are people that say moderation is the way, and that's how you do it. And there are people that have written books about it and all the rest of it. But I just think it's exhausting. So the quicker you can
Agreed.
get through that period, the better.
Yes, exactly. And you don't have to do it alone.
Exactly. No, definitely get support. Absolutely. Okay. As we're coming to the end of the episode, so I'm going to ask you, Lindsay, what does thriving alcohol-free mean to you?
I feel like I already spoiled it because to me, it means being the most confident and relaxed woman in the room. So, because I am not worried about drinking and because I am not always concerned about it, I'm relaxed. And that's given me so much confidence. And I know that that seems unimaginable to people who are just entering this journey, but it is 100% possible.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great answer. Being your most authentic self. And when you're drinking, you don't actually know who you are,
Mm-mm.
truly. And a lot of work happens as you go. For me, not drinking and going on this journey of becoming alcohol free is all about personal growth and transformation. That's fundamentally what it is. It's not actually about the not drinking. That bit sort of finishes quite quickly. But when you're in the journey and you've been on it for 3, 4, 5 years, it's all about who are you becoming, who have you become along the way, and who is this person? And this person is you who's always been there,
Mhm.
but actually you haven't really been able to tap into that because, as you say, a lot of us have been drinking since we were in college. A lot of us have been drinking prior to that, in some cases, since school. And we never really gave our brains a chance to even fully develop without alcohol, and ourselves a chance to process and manage emotions properly without the use of alcohol. And there's so much that we're doing with using alcohol as a crutch to get us through celebrations, commiserations, everyday holidays, whatever. That is just what society tells you to do. So I love it. I love the answer. I think it's a brilliant answer, being the most confident and relaxed person. And that's it. It's that authenticity and being you and being able to walk into a room and be you.
Yeah.
So yeah, really great answer. So
Thank you.
how do people get in touch with you?
People can get in touch with me. I am at Happily Soberly Living on Instagram and then also just lindsayhennekey.com.
Brilliant. And how did you come up with
My Instagram, oh, it was like 8,000 different variations of the word happy and sober and living, and then and putting them into a puzzle where I felt like it started to roll off my tongue. And yeah.
I love that. That's fantastic. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much. Any last words, any words of wisdom that you want to leave the listener with before we pull it to an end?
Yeah, I think it's all about leaning in and leaning into what feels really uncomfortable, but making that bold decision to get uncomfortable and make the big change because it's a bold decision. It's going against everything that society tells us is normal and what we should be doing. And so just be bold.
Be bold. Let's go
Yeah.
with it. Thank you so much. And thank you for being an amazing guest. Lovely to meet you. And
Thank
have a
you.
great week.
You
Take
too.
care.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Lindsay. It was so wonderful to have you on the podcast, and I really enjoyed that conversation. I loved what you said about thriving alcohol free and what that means to you, and that is being the most confident and relaxed woman in the room. And I know that's what your group coaching stands for as well. So I really love that you're enabling women to be the most confident and relaxed women in the room because I think that's really important. And so many women just aren't, and they're not really living their full life and really being able to stand out and speak up as they would want to. So I'd absolutely agree that being alcohol free helps you to absolutely be that. And that's wonderful. Okay, thank you for listening to the episode today. I do appreciate you, and I would love to meet you in person if you are around next Friday, 26th of April at 6:30 to 8:30 to come along to my event to celebrate the 1 year anniversary of A Cocktail of Clarity. I do hope I'll see you there and can't wait to meet you. Okay, well, have a wonderful week and I will see you on the next episode. Take care. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe so you get alerted every time I drop a new episode. I'd love it if you could rate, review, and share this episode. Feel free to tag me on Instagram at Thrive Alcohol Free and follow me for daily tips. If you would like to work with me, I offer one-to-one coaching sessions and have my signature group coaching program. If you're not yet ready for coaching, I also have a self-paced online course, which is a companion to my book, A Cocktail of Clarity. All the links are in the show notes. I will see you in the next episode. Have a wonderful week. Take care.